We are back. Let's see what we've got. The market's fucking up. The geopolitical landscape is getting crazy. Pretty much Iran's gonna be next. Russia, China are definitely trying to figure out how to avoid the US dollar. And a bunch more. Yeah, so we're gonna have to see really what ends up happening. Yeah.
The holidays have come and gone once again, but if you've forgotten to get that special someone in your life a gift, well, Mint Mobile is extending their holiday offer of half off unlimited wireless. So here's the...
We are watching geopolitical tensions heat up very early in the year, and we also have the U.S. government supposedly maybe gearing up for that to continue in the future. The U.S. President, Donald Trump, came out and announced a proposition to increase the U.S.'s defense spending by 50% in the name of protecting the nation. I guess that's in an attempt to protect the U.S. from whatever comes after capturing the Venezuelan president, as well as threatening other countries in the region. Does this increase in spending actually mean that the United States is preparing for war? And can the U.S. actually pull this off? I mean, we have to consider that the Supreme Court has been doing a lot of things that makes the actual plan behind this headline a lot harder to do. So let's break down exactly
See what happens. Yeah, could be World War III happening soon. We're gonna have to see what goes on, yeah. Wondering about wheels up. Does it go wheels up? Or do the wheels go up? Yeah, no, we're gonna figure it out. Yeah. together. I don't believe that, really. Yeah, it'll depend on a few factors that we're looking at. I have to look at that a little closer. Yeah, and we're still going through the list of management firms. Making people money.
Who wouldn't have even realized this if I wasn't following my buddy on social media who's constantly coming up with stuff that literally makes my jaw drop. I'm talking about former State Department employee and executive director of the Foundation for Freedom Online. Mike Benz is back with us. Mike, great to see you, great.
Had stolen Citgo from them. So we used this kind of violation of international law and human rights as the predicate for seizing Citgo. So if Maria Corina Machado doesn't have the support of the people, then how do we have Citgo? This is why so much of this is dependent on this trial is going to be insane. in a previous trial for one of Maduro's underlings, the court would not allow the jury to hear evidence that Nicolas Maduro was the legitimate president of Venezuela. I think it was Beryl Howe, Judge Beryl Howe, you remember, would not allow the jury to hear evidence that Maduro was the actual president. It was presupposed. It was, what's the judicially ordered that it was an illegitimate president.
Puerto Rico.
And I see Angel Extaf, isn't Rodriguez grabbing the power there, and and that's a whole other can of worms. So the Wall Street Journal, who seemed to suggest that she was a CIA asset, of course, when you
They're dodging taxes with that. For show.
the U.S. as it comes, and let's see if this that's taking a while. And so we're going to need even more of these NGOs. This is what the Republican Party will argue. We're going to need even more National Endowment for Democracy funding. We're going to need even more, pro-democracy
Bullshit in the background.
type funding, not just for Venezuela, but all of the domino effect.
Want to see what bullshit in the back?
We're going to need it for Nicaragua. We're going to need it for Costa Rica.
A
We're going to need it
must.
for Bolivia.
Shoe dog.
So the predicate for having such
Jesse Livermore.
is like kind of destroyed by saying that Maria Corina Machado does not have the support or respect of her people.
What is this guy?
The only other candidate was Maduro, so who won the election then?
She's the vice
So the
president.
predicate for this arrest that Maduro
Might not even have the degree.
is drug lord,
Question.
a cocaine drug lord responsible for 300,000 deaths on American streets. That's what was cited in the Air Force One interview. None of those deaths are from cocaine. Tell me, do you know anyone who's died of a cocaine overdose?
No, I don't know. This guy's got a crazy background. He worked at a glass. I'm pretty sure Cinco main's a glass manufacturer. It's like, what are you doing there? What does that even mean? The well-being.
We're no longer in the crack epidemic.
Cinco Bay.
Crack as a street drug is just not really around very much. There's cocaine. But
Glass.
that's like high net worth individuals. People that I know who do cocaine are like, and I'm not close friends with them, but I've seen this happen in some of these circles. They're like well-to-do. I mean, we saw this with Hunter Biden. You say what you want about fentanyl laced cocaine, but the fentanyl is not Colombia. Those made in labs. It's not made in Venezuela. It's in Mexico. It's made in labs in Mexico. No matter how you slice it, before we even get to the CIA part of this,
So, man.
we want Venezuela
Holly Hill, Florida.
to take it. Beyond that, you are being asked to hold your nose, close your eyes, stuff your ears, and go along with it because it's badass. And look, it looked badass, holy shit. And communists suck. But oh man, this is an ugly one. It's just not true that Venezuelan cocaine is the reason kids are dying. And I don't believe it's true that Maduro was this big cocaine warlord I just posted it on my X and my YouTube. Venezuela, Maduro inherited a countrywide cocaine problem in Venezuela from the Central Intelligence Agency. The Cartel of the Suns claim, which was this was something that you heard the White House talk about, this Cartel of the Suns, Cartel of the Suns. That was the CIA thing. That was the 1990s. 1992, 1993. 14 hours ago in the New York Times. Justice Department drops claim that Venezuela's Cartel of the Suns is an actual group. Now, they had cited this in a previous indictment as the basis for rolling up these other Venezuelan officials. And now, and that was supposed to be the reason that we black-bagged Maduro in the middle of the night. Because he ran the Cartel of the Suns. But now, once we've kidnapped him and stolen his oil company and gave it to the second biggest donor in the Republican Party, we drop it as soon as he's at trial. Why? Because of what we watched. For example, that 1993 60 Minutes, where you had the head of the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency. Not just admit, resign in protest because the CIA had imported 1,500 kilos of cocaine from Venezuela to Miami. Venezuela was a narco state
China.
because from the 1960s through the 1990s, during the Cold War, the CIA was using the returns on these crops, the cocoa crops, and the ability to smuggle drugs through things like bananas and fruit as a way to prop up anti-communist, largely right-wing governments or insurgencies throughout Latin America. And these cartels became a powerful lever for political control. But the problem is, if you assert that the Cartel of the Suns is
Yeah, there's so many of them. It's like, what do you do with all these? I don't really see.
very difficult
And they all apparently got major assets.
to deny discovery
SML Financial LLC.
about the CIA's role in creating it.
Let's see where they're based out of.
Imagine if the DOJ maintains the charge that he's the head of the Cartel of the Suns, and the judge grants discovery.
Bethesda, Maryland.
Maduro says
Bethesda.
the CIA did.
Wow.
And here's 1,600 points of evidence. I demand as part of my defense
XML Financial Group LLC.
in their evidence
See what's going on with them.
related to the CIA and Cartel of the Suns.
Team,
And then the DOJ has to have a quarterly subpoena to the CIA to disclose
CEO and co-founder.
import agency, CIA, drug running in Venezuela and Colombia, right on its border. This is how we got President Bill Clinton. He was the governor of Arkansas when Mena, Arkansas was the CIA's
A bunch of random people.
for smuggling cocaine to sell the cash to buy guns for the Nicaraguan Contras and Iran-Contra. The Justice Department has backed off a dubious claim that President Nicolas Maduro, about President Nicolas Maduro, that the Trump administration promoted last year in laying the groundwork to remove him from power in
That's
Venezuela.
their
He was
Jewish.
leading a drug cartel called
They're
Cartel
Jewish.
of the Suns. That claim traces back to a 2020 grand jury indictment.
This is a wealth advisor. What
by
is
the Justice
that?
Department. This was our justification for seizing Citgo. In July 2025, copying language from it, the Treasury Department designated Cartel of the Suns as a terrorist organization. In November, Secretary Rubio ordered the State Department to do the same. Now, the Justice Department released a rewritten indictment that appears to tacitly concede that it's not real.
There's so many wealth advisors. It's like, I don't understand how they have that many and what they all do. Wealth advisors.
Cartel of the Suns. And describes Maduro's as the leader. The new one mentions it twice and says that he, like his predecessor, protected in its patrons. So they chopped down 32 times in the centerpiece of it to twice in a passing reference. Let me look at that. Gosh. That's crazy. 32 times, and then poof, it's gone. This was the same thing with Noriega, by the way. You know, because the issue with Noriega, we've been told that this is just like what we do with Noriega, the Panamanian dictator. And he had sought to nationalize the Panama Canal. We accused him of being a drug trafficker. So we black-bagged him, put him on trial. And what gets left out of that story is that U.S. prosecutors documented long-term CIA and U.S. military payments to Noriega. He got decades of CIA funds and U.S. military funds. Again, that CIA military drug running nexus. In January 1991, the Washington Post reported prosecutors said CIA plus U.S. military payments totals about $322,000 over 31 years. That's in 1991 money. Starting in 1955. For 31 years, until he went bad. The whole time, Noriega, who we effectively put into office in Panama just to go against the left-wing communists, using CIA drug money. Then when he threatened to nationalize the Panama Canal, we said, oh, you're dealing drugs. That's what the CIA, that's how he made his money. That's how he rose to power. The CIA knew that. That's why they let it go on. Prosecutors list CIA Army payments to Noriega. We're going to take this bit by bit, but you'll note Noriega smuggled that money through BCCI, the Jeffrey Epstein Bank. As you'll note, for example, it says between 1974 and 1986,
where they're based
Bear Stearns. In 1976, that very year, Bear Stearns
New York,
BCCI trades. That's exactly the period that Jeffrey Epstein was working with Bear Stearns from 1976 to 1986 on the BCCI accounts. At least Ace Greenberg was Jeffrey Epstein's mentor. And Jeffrey Epstein kept up with that exact same BCCI Safari Club network. BCCI was used for CIA payments to Noriega. Linda says I'm not following tonight, Mike. You don't get the point? The point that I'm getting at here is, I think the world is in a little bit of a state of shock right now about what happened with the seizure of Maduro. And he's not going home anytime soon. There will be a public trial about all this at some point. There will be intense maneuverings about the motions for discovery and every judicial ruling. This has serious impact on the world stage about our dealings with China, about our dealings with Europe. I was hoping that we would have transparency about the historical role of the U.S. government in organized crime and drug dealing in this administration. When Tulsi put up the JFK files, unredacted, I thought, holy shit, there's a chance. As I watch this, I go, chances are pretty much faded. This is rough stuff. The point here, Linda, is I don't like Maduro. Communists suck. I believe in the Monroe Doctrine. I would like Americans to get wealthy with as good a deal as possible on resources situated in foreign countries. This thing stinks. It stinks. This thing is deep law crap. This is a big old bag of bullshit. We're blaming Maduro for the shit that we did. This is like when we blamed China for COVID. Even though the U.S. military and CIA, the exact same players here, it was the U.S. military in 2018.
That's the game, man.
The DARPA grant to create furry cleavage site inserts for a coronavirus pandemic. Moderna had the patent before the outbreak even happened. Moderna is a spin-out of the U.S. military. The KFD-76, I'll get to yours in a sec. I just want to finish this point. The official response was China. China did this, right, from the Trump administration. Come on, man. China played a significant part in it. The U.S. military
Alright, let's keep going around.
gain of function pandemic creating research was farmed out to China. But we were the front end of that funnel. We had the military put out grants to create COVID-19 in 2018. It was done in the same lab, the Rocky Mountain Lab in Philadelphia, that was used to create Lyme disease in the 1950s, to drop on the Cubans in the 1960s, as the JFK files showed. It was funded $15 million by USAID. USAID paid the Wuhan lab $15 million to do that born coronavirus gain of function. We farmed it out there. And we had to, hold our nose, close our eyes, stop our ears, and say, okay, well, listen, we love Trump, so this is a sensitive moment. In your heart of hearts, don't you know? One of the reasons it's been difficult getting transparency about the CIA's role in COVID. I mean, let's to this. I want to go over actually this grand thing that I think about it. Mantel's CIA. Yeah. Okay, we'll get to this. One of the reasons we couldn't get an answer about COVID origins for so long, and it only started drip, drip, drip out 2-3 years after the fact, was because that would point the finger right at the U.S. military, right at the U.S. intelligence services. Getting an answer about the origins would actually absolve China of a significant part of the blame. Not all of it, obviously. The Wuhan lab was super fun. But we paid it to do the work. We patented the friggin' virus before it even escaped from China. And this is what I'm saying about the drug trade.
People patent viruses. Do people patent viruses? Yeah, that's insane. Global landscape patents related to the human coronavirus.
I mean, this looked like an easy
Yeah, people might actually patent these things.
I mean, if you look at the
What is that? Let's
by the
see.
CIA out of Mena,
I'm
Arkansas,
trying to wrap it
Bill
up.
Clinton was the governor. ODNI, Mena files. Mena, Arkansas, the Mena files. We're sorry that back in the 1980s, the CIA trafficked cocaine. They just have all the files associated.
Yes, people, governments,
Viral
nations,
classifications. You can do it if you want. But that was
That's crazy.
to run this op against Maduro.
That's absolutely insane.
And it's the same thing.
XR Securities LLC.
I mean, while this is happening, I mean, you probably saw this. While this is happening, Trump pardoned basically, the U.S. government indicted the ex-president of Honduras,
XR Trading.
Fernando Hernandez,
They're market making for now.
for drug trafficking.
Let's see where they're based out of.
Now he's seen as a right-wing Trump ally. So even though he was convicted by the Biden administration of conspiring with drug traffickers, using his government position to have hundreds of tons of cocaine
Web
to
development.
the U.S. He was sentenced to 45 years in prison. He's been pardoned. There's a lot more evidence there than there is here. They pardoned him like last week, right? Yeah. I mean, it's like, I mean, do I need to fill in all the things? Right now, I mean, another one of these big drug traffickers is it appears to be Daniel Noboa in Ecuador. I was asked to, but he's considered to be an ally of the Trump network, and so it was considered a big win when he won. I mean, he sits on top of this narco empire in Ecuador, which is the main point of shipment to the west coast of this country. But because the drugs fund the good guys in the eyes of the admin, they're protected in Ecuador. They're protected in Honduras. I mean, we saw this. They're protected in Venezuela. We went over this. Juan Guaido was also being backed by these same CIA cocaine networks. I think he was even smuggled back into the country by this narcotics gang. I know it's that we went over this. It's on the screen that I upload on Act. It would have, for example, been a big win in my view. Do you want to go after the Obama network? Eric Holder, all those assholes. Why did Eric Holder step down? You guys remember this asshole? Everyone goes, oh, all roads lead back to Obama.
You gotta work 10 years to get 6 weeks off. Is that what that just said?
Well, who was the main henchman?
Oh my god.
The law for Obama. It was Eric Holder.
It's absolutely insane.
And that was the right of the
Works 10 years to get 6 weeks off.
to step down. Anyone remember? He's covering for the CIA's drug running. Okay, that's what happened. Eric Holder stepped down in disgrace because he was held in contempt by Congress for stonewalling congressional mandated disclosures for government documents around
What are you gonna know? Everything is powered by a public company.
Now, Operation Fast and Furious was a CIA, DEA, FBI, ATF, U.S. State Department interagency approved operation to run guns to the Sinaloa cartel, to take out the rival gangs, the Los Zetas. Now there are these splinter groups like this New Generation cartel.
Chicago.
Because the Obama administration did not want to just go in and do what Trump suggested of just taking these, bombing a sovereign foreign country that's also our largest trading partner, Mexico. But they had a problem. You had the Los Zetas were doing things like Mexican cartels stealing oil. From pipelines to pockets, Mexico's cartels fuel and oil theft. Fuel smuggling in Mexico, oil theft, a multi-billion-dollar business fuels cartels.
Time now for Focus, and today we have a report on oil theft. Generally, it's stolen under
Cayman Islands.
but it's sold out in the open on the black market. As you'll see in this report by our team in Mexico, some of the country's biggest criminal organizations have been getting involved, and they're using bribery and violence to co-opt all sorts of
XTX markets.
is Puebla State.
It's midday in Puebla's wholesale market. Our team has gone undercover to film an illegal activity that's costing Mexico billions of dollars. Among the goods for sale here, stolen fuel, sold.
So what they do is the same thing that we were training ISIS fighters to do in Syria.
Equities,
And they steal the oil.
currencies,
Now, I don't know if you looked at a map
and commodities.
as we talked about the big base of the Republican Party is three things: big oil, big military, big chamber of commerce. The Democrats had everything else. The Democrats had the unions. The Democrats had the media. The Democrats had Hollywood. What's created parity between the Republican and Democrat Party has been that big oil, big military, and until recently, big business have been the counterweight to everything else. So there's a relative parity. That big oil is centrally located in Texas, in Houston, and from the supply in West Texas in the around the Permian Basin. Okay, also with a shout out to places like Louisiana and Oklahoma, but Texas. That's why you have the Bush dynasty. That's why you have so much that Texas is the big Republican powerhouse state. They have New York. Now, Texas shares these oil fields with Mexico. Chevron has huge interests in Mexican oil. ExxonMobil has huge shared interests in Mexican oil, revenue sharing, partnerships, rights. Remember, Rex Tillerson, the CEO and chairman of the board of ExxonMobil, was made the U.S. Secretary of State under Trump 1. So what happens when big Republican donors are getting their shit pilfered? Not even Republican, just big U.S. energy interests are getting their shit pilfered in Mexico by the Los Zetas cartel. Well, you can't just, I mean, Trump is kind of redefining what can and can't be done, but if you rewind the clock back 15 years to Fast and Furious, the idea of sending in the U.S. military to bomb a foreign country on its own soil, in the middle of its own country, deep inland, I mean, the logistics of it. I mean, imagine, for example, like China has got, you know, land here in the U.S. that they own. If a gang in, you know, one of our cities goes out and attacks that Chinese farmland, and the government of China just came in with tanks and military aircraft and just bombed those gangs in our cities, we think of that as an act of war. Hey, what is the Chinese military doing shooting people and killing people in Chicago? So, what we had to do through covert action, through U.S. military and CIA covert action, was to work with our assets in Mexico to take out the rivals in Mexico who are fucking with our shit. Republicans made a big deal about Fast and Furious, and it was a big blow to the Obama administration. They lost Eric Holder over it in disgrace. And everyone wondered, why didn't that investigation go anywhere? Why were there no indictments over Fast and Furious? We were running guns to the biggest cartel in Mexico. U.S. guns. The FBI and ATF, who were the front end of that, worked out secret agreements with gun stores in Arizona, in Queen Creek, in the exact place where Ray Epps and all these people, that whole Phoenix area, to run them over the border to the Mexican drug cartels. And that only became public because the serial numbers, for the fate of shooting an American Border Patrol guy, the cartels did with U.S. guns. They traced the serial numbers, and then the gun shop said, yeah, actually, we had a secret ring. Yeah, give the guns. No background checks. No nothing. That turned out to be Fast and Furious. It was U.S. military, CIA. Of course, because it was carried out in the homeland, FBI and ATF had to be the front funnels for it. But it was interagency approval. So once again, guns and drugs. We could, in theory, be having a transparency effort about Fast and Furious right now. Obama. Well, the problem is, the more you get into it, imagine the scandal. All the internal documents, all the CIA eyes-only memos, all the ODNI, all of the U.S. military coordination for running guns to drug runners.
No, because my nose is so backed up.
Gee, do you think the people in Venezuela are going to talk about that? You think China is going to hold that up to the UN? And so even things that would be helpful, not just for reforming the country, but that would be helpful politically for the Trump admin, are impossible because of this need to maintain this lie that Maduro is a cocaine kingpin. I'm sorry. I love the admin. I support 9.9%, 9.9 out of 10 things they've done. I didn't want to talk about this, but the fact is this is not as simple a story as, smash and grab and take the oil. I mean, look, to add some levity to this, I think, look, Andrew Tate, to his credit, had a pretty funny take on this. I'm just gonna play this.
Now, why is kidnapping the president of Venezuela funny? But the wars in the Middle East I was against. I know a lot of you are confused, so lift it up. I'm all for efficient imperialism. I don't like when we try and be imperialists, and it doesn't work.
Efficient imperialism is a great phrase. This is something that I think a lot of people got wrong about me when they first came across my content. I'm not like an anti-imperial leftist. I have a bunch of links we're going to go over from Max Blumenthal's work on all this, who has done heroic work in chronicling a lot of the covert CIA angles on all this stuff. But I come at it from a very different frame of reference. I'm not like a anti-imperialist leftist Marxist type.